Hi, I'm Megan Bushhausen, and you're watching Notes from the Dev Video Edition. Hello, and welcome back to our next episode of Notes from the Dev. I'm Megan, your host, and today we have Rodrigo and Aisha with us, two amazing email geeks who are solution architects and absolutely obsessed with things like email design and email design systems. The main reason that they have come on today is to talk about something I know nothing about, which is Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Yes, these two are trailblazers, and they are going to show us some cool email things in SFMC. So welcome to the show, you two. I am so incredibly excited that you're here and that you've come on.
Hi, yeah, no, me too. I'm actually a big fan of Notes from the Dev, so I'm really thrilled and excited to be here.
Yay, it makes me so happy. I am going to throw it over to you two to get right into it. What do you have for us today?
Well, hi. So my name is Aisha Marie Wayne. I just a quick little blurb about me. I work for a bank called City National Bank of Florida. I'm the product owner, and what I do is basically one hat, five. It's a one hat, one role, five hats. And what I do is basically I architect, I solution, I develop, I train, cross train, and try to help everyone get to the right solution in order to get to the business goals. And but before that, I've been an email developer for a very long time, and it's still my passion, despite the fact that hey, my day job is doing a lot of the harder work that wasn't there before. But that's good. Besides that, I my background was in design. Then I did QA. Then I did this and do that. And nowadays, it's just basically living the Salesforce Marketing Cloud life and doing all the things in there. That being said, we have an awesome email that was developed by Rodrigo, who's right here next to me, and he did a great job in terms of a design that we both collaborated on to show you guys on how everything works within Marketing Cloud for like a basic user. Because I know that initially when you go in, it's a little hard to understand everything if you don't have access to the application. So, Rodrigo, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Megan, for having me here, for having both of us here. I'm super fan of email and acid and from notes from the dev. My name is Rodrigo Santander. I'm currently a solution architect at a MarTech agency called Orange Digital from Mexico City. What I currently do is somehow something like Taisha. I design solutions, I build journeys, I create automations. Mostly, I do email design systems for my clients and help them reach their business objectives and goals. And without further ado, we're going to show you how the platform does the magic that we've been talking about.
And before we go into it, what I wanted to mention before we really see the screen is the fact that there's always a very good thing to remember as you get access to the system and you start learning is make sure your permissions are what you need, and you are, depending on how good you are with HTML and development and scripting, make sure that you know what, or at least try to learn what is the crawl, walk, run method. So, and what do I mean by that is specifically you have things like there's the no code WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, content builder kind of templates that are there by default. Then you have low code, which is, let's say you created a small little email design system, but you're not doing everything on hard mode. By that, what I mean is the different kinds of, let's say, content builder sections, the content block types like HTML, freeform, code snippets, image, and dynamic content. those are like the more of the lower code versions, and then you have code snippets, which is basically it kind of exposes everything on Marketing Cloud, and you can just bring in whatever code you want, whatever variables you want, and you move from there. So low code might work for some people, but it does also bring some problems with it. Like it adds additional divs and it doesn't quite render just right. So what we're showing here is more of the crawling method.
Complementing what Aisha just said, as you can see with the what you see is what you get editor, I started to write some text around here. But if you go to the HTML editor, you're gonna see a lot of trash code that is been setting here. A div with a style, another span to start grabbing the colors, B element from the for the bold stuff. But all of this isn't really semantic, right? So you have to handle with care how this scroll content block works, and use them in your favor. And really, what I always talk to my clients is, if you're gonna be doing this, I highly encourage you to learn the very most basic things about HTML, like adding a title, a subtitle with an H2, and a very basic paragraph with the P element, so that everything works as it should, right? So even though you have a what you see is what you get editor, you shouldn't be relying on it for more than, I don't know, passing the text to the left, to the right, to the center, adding a link, things like that. Because if not, you're gonna start having a lot of code that you don't really need in there.
Yeah, and it leads to render issues because it brings in like additional divs and things that just might make it wonky.
Exactly. So what we're looking at here really is the email template. When you start working on Marketing Cloud, going to have two different types of email. You have the email template and the email message. You can't create an email message without an email template, and it's basically the core of your email design. What you're going to have here is, if you go to the code view, you're going to have an HTML declaration, some schemas, and all the CSS that Marketing Cloud works behind the scenes, so that when you have start working, you're going to build through those data blocks to start adding content blocks, as we're showing you here, right? Like adding the freeform and default. But what we're gonna be doing, we added something to the default template that isn't actually there. Marketing Cloud has some flaws, as every platform has. So we're gonna help them a little. I'm gonna do a little zoom so you can see what we did. First of all, the doc type starts as HTML for transitional. So what we're doing here is we are future proofing your email template. So everything that works later in the game, every year you're gonna be ready for it. The second part is in the HTML. We're gonna define a language here because I'm in Mexico. I'm adding the ES language,
Mhm.
and later the XMLNS schemas from BML. So if you're working with vectors on Outlook, you're gonna have these little friends here, so we can start working with them without any issues.
Yeah. I wanted to add also something fun that I know that especially if you work with international code, like you can make the HTML element right there. You can make that a variable and it'll be easy to switch it up.
You can do something like this. And when you bring out that extension that we're going to show in a minute, you're going to see how we can add this to the language. So every user, if the user is based in Mexico, you can do the ES. If he's based in the US, you can add the US, and so on and so on. So you don't have to come back to the email template. Additional stuff that we're adding here is the code for Microsoft Outlook to make the images zoom on 96 dpi's, so the image doesn't break when you're watching it from Outlook on a Windows computer with the zoom mode on. So this little friend here is going to help us a lot. And lastly, what you're seeing here, the add your CSS content, is not something that comes by default in Marketing Cloud. So
Yeah.
we're gonna add it by doing this little code here. Div data type slot. data key CSS. And the data label that you see here, the add your CSS content here, the only thing that it does is that it adds this little text that it won't be on your email, but it's like something like user experience friendly. So when someone starts using your email message and sees, I can add my CSS content here, they're gonna be adding that there, and they're not gonna be adding it everywhere else, right? So these are the little things that we changed, and you're gonna have them in a file where we're gonna leave you for the last of the session.
Hmm.
So this email template with all of this is the first thing you're gonna want to do when you start designing your email.
And also, I wanted to add one thing before we move on is also something that we really discovered is that the way Rodrigo codes the div slot tags, he puts it in CSS, which is great. But funny enough, on my end, it's sometimes random numbers. But there's so many different ways that you can name this, and it can work. Everyone has their own different styles and methods, which is the cool but also dangerous thing about Marketing Cloud is that you can make solutions 50 different ways. And that's something we both noticed that I'm like, oh, well, I like to be a little bit of a jerk sometimes and only give slot solutions for these are the only slots you can put in. Let's say, especially if you have like a really large enterprise place that you're working at where they have very strict design systems and standards, you can only bring in certain kinds of slots for certain kinds of methods. So Rodrigo's actually showing that right there. That's actually pretty neat. So if you know you have a group of people that aren't very HTML friendly, you're only going to give them, let's say, an image block, or you're only going to give them free form or something like that. You don't want them to have access to code snippets. You can really be as restrictive or as free as you want to be when you want to give them slot access, if you care that much. But if you're a smaller place, just have them all open.
Yeah, it definitely depends on how you work with your team, or if your client is creating emails on the content block side.
Mm-hmm.
So once we have this email template, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create an email message, and this email message starts having different things that we didn't see in the email template. Things like a subject and a pre-header. So this means that this is a sendable email that we're gonna be able to do. And first thing I want to show you is how everything starts working out through data. No, we have a data extension. I'm gonna move a little around to show you what that means. What we're looking at here is called a data extension, which is basically a table inside Marketing Cloud, which holds different attributes. We have the first name, the last name, the email, and the favorite animal of each of us. And if you go to the records, you're gonna see that there's one that we don't know the first name or the last name, nor the animal. And from there, we have Aisha, we have Ro, we have Megan, and each one of us has a different information.
Yep.
And I know if you can talk about the camel case, Aisha.
Yeah, what I wanted to mention a little bit on here is that when you're making something like we call it camel case, and just for funsies, a letras mayúscula, which is in Spanish basically capitalization of the first letter, is what we like to do is, and it's probably one of the first things you learn in Marketing Cloud is how to proper case something. Because a lot of the times when you're in Marketing Cloud and you're getting data, a lot of the times that data is really like dirty. So what do? You don't mess with the actual data itself on the file. You actually do the cleanup work really in the actual email template. Um, One of several guardrails you can really set up. And so what we do is that because it's likely the most used AMP script function, and it's one of the first ones you learn, it and that along with format, you try not to add additional spacing on the equal or other parts of it because it only serves to make the code heavier. So make sure you don't put spacing on, like, let's say the percent space equal. Just go ahead and do percent equal proper case, and then you put in the actual variable here, which would be the first name, and then you put close parentheses equals %%. Usually it's like the most base level one that you have, and it's really helpful because it adds the camel casing to the names. That, let's say sometimes they come in uppercase or they come in different ways. It gets more complex than that, but we're gonna leave it in a very base level there, right there.
So how does this translate into our email? What we're looking at here is a preview of holding the information from that extension.
Mhm.
And it says, can you guess our favorite animals? And if the user doesn't have any information for the name, the last name, or the animal, what we're going to be looking at here is a fallback state. Is, hi, I'm an email developer, and
Mhm.
my favorite animal is a secret. But what happens when we have information? We're going to see that Aisha, her favorite animal is a fox. We start watching her image go in. We see her name, we see her animal, and if we can think about me, I have a penguin. And let's think about Megan for a little while, and she loves bunnies. I hope we catch the right animal there.
So cute. I have a pet bunny, so it works.
I
Oh,
had a
great.
feeling we were spot on with the bunny.
Yeah, my bunny hangs out with me in my office.
All right, so she's right here with us.
Yeah.
So let's see how all this is built inside, because this is the production version.
Yeah.
Sorry, but what I'm gonna show you here are the content blocks, starting with the unknown user. Here we start seeing our email developer friends watching for the first time AmpScript, and AmpScript is the language that we use in Marketing Cloud along with SSJS to create personalization, to do math functions, to do proper case, as just Aisha mentioned. And what we're doing here, we're calling the AmpScript code through the percentage icons. We're gonna define first our variables, a variable for the first name and a variable for the name that is going to be displayed. We call them and we set the first name variable with the first name definition on our data extension. I'm gonna move a little so you can see that what we're talking about is right this one, the first name. So this at first name, what it holds right now is the name of any of the developers that are in that extension.
Mhm.
And then we have an if empty statement. This if else statement is going to check, hey, let me know if this happens. If not, do this. So the first thing we're going to check is if first name is empty, then we're going to set the display name, which is the variable we're using to set the name, to
Mhm.
email developer. So this one's going to be our fallback state if the user doesn't have any values. Else, you're gonna set the display name as a concatenation. And this concatenation, what it does is a very cool AppScript function that allows us to sum uh, to concatenate different values. So
Mhm.
we're concatenating the first name, we're concatenating a space between them, and then the last name. So if it says Aisha Swain, if it says Rose Santander, and so on, you end up with this code. And lastly, we close the if else statement with an end if. And then what you see here is all the semantic code for the paragraph and the titles. So in the second title, we see another AppScript function that it's B. B, what it does is allows us to print an information. So the display name variable we set up here, we're going to be printing here so that it displays the name that we want.
Yeah.
Uh,
Also, I wanted to make one quick little thing. Every email person is different. Specialist, developer, whatever your title is Rodrigo likes to do the lowercase. I actually like to do everything uppercase, but both varieties work. So I did want to say for like the if then statements, you can make them all caps or you can make them all like lowercase.
Yeah, you can do this. And Outscript doesn't differentiate between lowercase or uppercase, so it's
Mhm.
finally it's your thing, depending
Yeah.
how you code. So what we're looking at here is exactly the same code, but for the animal, we're talking about different variables. Here we have first name and display name, and now we
Mhm.
have animal and display animal. We set the animal variable to the animal in the data extension. We call the if else statement to display a secret if the user doesn't have any information. And if the user has the information, we go back to the data from the data extension. So we are also looking at here at different types of content blocks. As you see, how Aisha mentioned, we have the code snippet for things that are exclusively code based, and we don't want Marketing Cloud to mess with this code, to mess with the way the code is written. Everything must stay the same. We're going to be using a code snippet. So this is actually going to help us a lot into getting our code exactly the way we want to and not have a different variation every time we open the code, right? Uh, let's see how this works for people who have their information. So we see here a more basic version of the code that we saw right up the top. Here we see a lot of AppScript. But if we didn't need that fallback state, we can do something like this. Here we are using a text content block. This text content block basically allows us to see what you see is what you get version of this information.
Mhm.
We can also go to the HTML editor, do a quick apply source formatting to view this code the way we want it to. And what we're looking at here is a basic concat that is happening here to get the first name, the last name, and a space, and
Mhm.
also the information at a semantic level.
Yep.
We're also looking here at a free form, and this free form is here for a very cool reason. So the free form allows us to get tables inside. Sorry for this is in Spanish.
Oh, don't apologize.
Uh, yeah,
I've
yeah,
actually never seen it in Spanish. I love it.
yeah. It's quite nice.
Yeah.
Uh, but what we are doing here is adding a quick table. So this table has a border radius and 100% width. So we can see this on Outlook working quite well. In Outlook is not going to work the border radius, but everywhere else is going to look just fine, right? So if we really have a content block per email developer, we can add the emoji right around here. If not, we can put it on the data extension, and we have each and every one of the email devs in a content block.
Mhm.
So lastly, once we have all these content blocks ready,
Mhm.
what basically what we did is use a different kind of dynamic content block, which is right here, that allows us to do different variations depending on the information of that extension. So this one, it's based on the data extension that I just showed you here. What it does is that if the default version is going to place this default content block with an unknown value, and if the name of the email developer is Megan, we're going to show the content block for Megan. First name is equal to Megan. If the first name is equal to Aisha, we're going to show the content block for Aisha. And if the first name is equal to Rob, it's going to show my content block. And the cool thing is that you can click on each and every one of them and see how it's going to be rebuilt upon the moment you click on it. So the last thing I
Before
want,
you move on, I actually wanted to mention the harder version of doing that is doing it as a HTML block or a code snippet where you're not going to really see it until you hit preview and test. So this is kind of a way to make it a little bit more user friendly for people that aren't super advanced.
yeah. Also, AppScript tends to become really hard the moment you get out of things like this.
Mhm.
So you're gonna have to be a very cool email dev to start doing things like that. Uh, Last thing I want to show you how was if you have a footer, something like this, where you want to add the year of the current year. So
Mhm.
you don't have to go back to this footer and pollute 2022 or 2023 or 2024 on January 1st. There's a very cool outscript variable function called format, and this format function allows us to call the a now function, which brings us the current date, and we're gonna tell
Yeah.
it to just bring us the year. With this, what we're gonna see at the end, I'm gonna hit preview and test, and we're gonna see
Mhm.
exactly here the year we're on, right? So if this session was recorded in 2024, we'll be seeing the 2024 version. So this is just a quick heads up of what we can do inside Marketing Cloud, and here you can see how it all builds together. We see the fallback state, email developer, a secret, a different image when everything's empty. And when we have the information of the user, we start getting all this information for Aisha, for Ro, or for Megan Bushausen. So this will be everything, and we practically created a document which has everything we just showed you, the name of the functions from the AMP script, the AMP script code to make it work, what it does, and additional notes so you can start working on them. I know you want to talk about this, Aisha.
I love that you put this all together. This
Yeah.
looks amazing. Can I
Yeah.
ask a question about
Oh,
when you were writing the if else statements for
yeah.
bringing the animal in? Because I noticed that you did it the opposite way of how I write if else statements, where I start with the variable. So
Yeah.
would so in simple terms be like if animal, and then you fill the animal variable in, and then the
Yeah.
else would be if it was blank. But you guys went the opposite, where you started with if it's blank
Either.
and then show the animal. So I didn't know if there was a reason why you did that because of Salesforce, or if it's just you write your if else statements.
I think it's stylistic. It just
Yeah.
depends.
Okay.
You can do both. Both
Yeah.
are
Okay.
accurate. That's why things can get a little crazy once you go super duper, like there's loops and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, everyone has kind of like how everyone develops emails differently.
Yeah.
Kind of like how that's how you have your handwriting. It's the same thing with scripting languages like
Yeah. Totally.
AmpScript or SSJS or GTL or JSON.
Yeah. Totally. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are like 5 or 6 different ways to write the same code, but it's more like a developer decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have everything in here. We have a learning curve. If you see it, one love letter, it means that it's a very basic script function that you can use on your very
Yeah.
first try. It will be
Yeah.
very fun, very basic. If you add, for example, the proper case and add it to your first name, and let's say your first name is right written like written like this, it will bring it like this on Marketing Cloud when the email goes out, right?
Yeah.
But there are things, there's stuff like the if then statement, the IIF value to bring
Mhm.
fallbacks, if else. This is a little more complicated,
Yeah.
so we just wanted to let you know. So if you start trying this out, give us a shout. We'll help you any way we can.
Yeah, definitely. Not only that, so I basically tried to keep it between two letters and below because and same with the way we were just kind of like both building this out because we wanted to make sure that hey, are these the ones that we use the most frequently? We thought about it. We looked at our own code and we put this all in here because we know that hey, this is something that even though yes, you could find a lot of these online, it's one thing to find it online and it's another when you have someone actually like walking you through it and how it functions. So that's why we have that kind of our own little learning curve letter system there. And we added also kind of like the name of the function, the code example, what does it do, and then any additional notes or links. We also have one specifically on the second tab that we included some links to. um, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead a little bit too much, but we have all of these together. Let's see here. One sec. So we have that here. So we have what we spoke about on the HTML5 doc type, future proofing. We have some add email language, the 120 DPI fix, the div slots. I actually added in a little bit of a, kind of from a historical perspective, Mozilla, who has awesome documentation, I put in like, hey, it comes from the HTML element slot. So there's a link to that. And then going back to the div slots here, we have the basic default version, adding the data slot into your HTML, and then all these other things that are related to that. Then I went the more complex ones. You know that I've touched the code when there's some heavy metal references or Avatar, the Last Airbender references. And so I put in their data key, which could be any random number or something specific and things like that. So I went a little deeper and it did more on the explanation. And then we have the content code blocks that Rodrigo looked through and explained to you guys before.
Yeah, if you just want to copy, paste it, create your
Mm-hmm.
data extension, you can have fun with this file. It's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much everything is in there. We added one last link. It's a GitHub file with all the HTML references from that drive. So you can have it from here. You can add it from the drive section, or you can ask us on our Twitter or LinkedIn or anywhere else you want to find us.
Right now we have it pretty much built out. So, it'll help you guys out. I know I wish I had this when I first joined and started in the ecosystem. It was a struggle bus.
I have heard it is hard
Yeah.
to get up and running on SFMC,
Yeah.
so I'm sure people will appreciate having all of this available. Yeah, it looks like a lot. That's pretty amazing. It's always interesting to see how other people code in different systems and whatnot. So I thank you both for coming on and showing us. I love that email. It was so cute.
Yeah. I
Rodrigo,
love
you always design such cute things.
going together. I'm like, I want one.
Yeah, that was super adorable. Yeah, so so I guess first,
Yeah.
people watching, those links will all be in the show notes. We'll likely include it in the companion blog, all that jazz. So make sure you have access to it so you can start playing with the code. Rodrigo, Aisha, why don't you tell us where we can find you online if people want to chat, have questions, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I'll say on my end, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on GitHub. I don't update my GitHub as much as I'd like to because a lot of things are on lockdown because of a lot of the proprietary stuff I have. But I do have my portfolio there and a couple other things also. Probably by the time the site goes live, I'll have my portfolio back up and running. I think that's really about it. I occasionally freelance, not full time, maybe eventually. But I think that's really about it. GitHub, LinkedIn. I'm on Email Geeks sometimes. I'm formerly board member of Women of Email. So I'm still on there sometimes. People still ping me, ask me questions, vice versa. Totally fine. And also, I was a co-founder for How to SFMC. I still kind of hover in there and ask questions and respond to things, but I'm generally a little bit more of a lurker nowadays, just because of work.
And from my side, I'm almost always on Twitter, Ro
Mhm.
Santander. I'm
Yeah.
writing in English there, but if you want to write in Spanish, I'm in LinkedIn. I'm very active also. I founded a community called Friends of Email for all the Spanish related email geeks and marketing cloud trailblazers. So I have a YouTube video channel, I have a Slack channel, uh, a blog which talk about email development and marketing cloud fun tips and tricks. So if you want to catch up either Spanish or English everywhere, it's just fine. I'll be there.
Yeah, there's actually very few of us. I'm bilingual. I'm based out of Miami, and hablo español también. Yeah, so that's it.
Awesome. I love that you built this community for Spanish speakers. Everything is so English dominant that those resources in other languages are definitely needed for people who are not bilingual in English. So amazing. If you speak Spanish, go find the community and join it, because I'm sure they want to grow. And we'll make sure all of this is out there to easily find. So with that, thank you both again for coming on. And for those watching, thank you for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, do all the things. And we'd really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.